Welcome back, Focus Learners. Today, we're diving into an explainer that is frankly going to melt your mind a little bit. We're unpacking a text known as the Mahāpaṭṭhāna Part 2. But right off the bat, I need you to completely erase the idea that we're just analyzing some dusty ancient religious book today. We're not. Instead, when you look at the scholarly analysis of this text, it reveals something way more profound. It is essentially an ancient metaphysical operating system. We're going to explore how this absolutely remarkable system maps out the deep, interconnected relationships between mind, matter, time, and karma, and the crazy part, it did all this centuries before modern science even had the vocabulary for it.
I mean, it sounds like a wildly provocative question, right? Did ancient monks actually map out modern physics and psychology? But when academics dive into the eighth and final book of the Abhidhamma Piṭaka, this is exactly the kind of grand unified theory they uncover. We are talking about a philosophical framework that rivals, and in some really surprising cases, totally anticipates our contemporary scientific paradigms. The logical complexity here is just off the charts. Okay, so let's quickly look at our roadmap to make sense of all this. We'll start with the universe's operating system, then look at the equation structure of everything, move into the network of mind and time, touch on the philosophical physics in the Abhidhamma, and finally decoding towards liberation.
All right, diving right into part one, the universe's operating system. To really get this, we have to grasp the sheer, ultimate depth we're dealing with.
So the specific text we're focusing on is the Mahāpaṭṭhāna. Ancient scholars often referred to it as the Great Treatise just because of its unparalleled massive scope. It behaves exactly like a computer's operating system, but for reality. Specifically in Part 2, it analyzes what are called cetasikas, which are essentially groups of threes, and processes them through this incredibly advanced framework. The source material makes it super clear. This isn't about blind belief. It's a rigorous mechanical analysis of how the underlying gears of the universe actually interact with one another.
Listen, if you take away just one core idea from this entire explainer, let it be this. The universe operates entirely on interconnected networks. There are absolutely no independent, isolated objects anywhere. Everything, from the random thoughts in your head right now to the gravity holding you in your chair, exists strictly through a web of conditioned relationships.
Which brings us right to our second module, the equation structure of everything. Let's break down the actual math driving this operating system.
To really understand the algorithm here, you've got to know this magic number, 24. This represents the 24 Paccayas. You can think of them as the 24 fundamental conditions, or the literal mechanical gears, that support all of existence. Every single interaction in the universe relies on some combination of these 24 gears turning together. So let's map this whole thing out like a literal mathematical equation. According to the text, the architecture of reality computes like this. First, you start with the 17 cetasikas. These are your base variables of reality. Then, those variables are processed through 7 varas, which act as computational channels or loops. And finally, those variables and channels are completely governed by those 24 Paccayas, the relational conditions we just mentioned. It's a breathtakingly precise, interwoven mechanism. It's literally the code of reality.
Okay, moving on to Module 3, the network of mind and time. Let's see how this cosmic equation actually applies to things we experience every day, like psychology.
When the text applies its equation to human perception, the results are honestly startlingly modern. It states that our thoughts, which it calls viṭaka, and our emotions, called piti, are not just random isolated spikes in our brain. No, they are highly complex, conditioned networks of consciousness. The mind itself, or citta, and its mental factors, cetasika, always arise together. They delicately support each other in this vast network. It is exactly how modern cognitive psychology views the brain today, as a web of neural interdependencies. And you know, it gets even more fascinating when we look at how it handles time. The traditional Western view usually treats time as a straight line, right? The past is gone, the present is here, the future is next. But the Abhidhamma introduces this concept of relational time. In this system, the past never fully vanishes. Through specific conditions like aramana, meaning the object in focus, and upanisaya, a strong supporting condition, the past actively bridges the gap to influence your present mind. Time isn't a straight line here. It's an active relational pressure on the now.
Now, within all this psychological processing, there's also a strict system of absolute ethics. The text draws a hard mathematical boundary between right and wrong mental states. It points out that severe wrong views, what it calls miccha ditti, act essentially like corrupted data or a literal virus in the system. If this incompatible data is present, it breaks the code. It makes it structurally and mathematically impossible for the system to process towards enlightenment. The code just flat out rejects it.
All right, let's shift gears to Section 4, Philosophical Physics in the Abhidhamma. We're zooming out from the internal mind to see how this rewrites the physical world around us.
For the longest time, the traditional Western view of the world was based on atomism. Basically, the idea that the universe is built out of tiny, solid, indestructible blocks of matter. But the Abhidhamma throws that idea entirely out the window. It proposes a model of philosophical physics where matter isn't actually solid at all. Physical reality is just an interdependent network of forces and energies that are constantly arising and collapsing in real time.
You can see this brilliantly illustrated in how they define the four great elements, or Mahāpaṭṭhāna rūpa. Now, they don't mean literal physical dirt or blowing wind here. They are describing fundamental energy properties. Earth represents the force of extension or solidity. Water is the force of cohesion that holds things together. Fire is temperature and maturation energy. And wind is the force of motion. These aren't solid objects. They're just an interrelying network of properties that have to coexist to create the temporary illusion of physical matter.
So how do we actually use this ancient source code? That leads us to our final section, Decoding towards Liberation.
This right here is where the high-level philosophy becomes a practical, everyday tool for your own life. Step 1 is simply understanding the theory of those 24 relational conditions. Step 2 is practicing vipassana, which is the direct, real-time observation of these mind and matter networks as they happen. And that leads to Step 3, destroying ganasana. Ganasana is the cognitive illusion that you have a solid, permanent self. By hacking your own perception through observation, you see the underlying code for what it really is, and that illusion of a solid identity just shatters. Of course, you can't just crack open an ancient metaphysical operating system and expect to read it like a novel. Scholars heavily rely on vital decryption keys to make sense of it. The most important of these is the ancient commentary known as the Pancha-Paccaya. Try saying that 3 times fast. But seriously, this commentary acts as the ultimate decoder ring. It allows dedicated students to navigate the incredible complexity and unlock anantanaya, which literally means the infinite boundless meanings mapped out in this system.
As we bring this all together, I want you to look at this quote. It perfectly summarizes the ultimate takeaway from all the source material we've explored today. Whether you're looking at cognitive psychology, physics, morality, or time, the rule is totally universal. Everything is just a conditioned network of energy and mind. Every single phenomena arises, exists, and ceases strictly under the law of conditions. There is absolutely no permanent, unchanging self anywhere in the equation. Which leaves us with this final lingering thought. If this ancient code is right, and your body, your thoughts, your emotions, and even your experience of time itself are all just interdependent, fleeting variables of energy processing through a network, who exactly is the you observing this right now? Take a second and really think about that. Thank you so much for joining me on this Explainer Focused Learners. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you next time.